How's it going, guys? Airsoftman819 here again with another controller review. Yes, my first actual controller review in a long time. I apologize it took me so long, but I finally am able to get back to doing some product reviews, and of course I will be doing that. If you guys watched my last couple videos, you guys know that my G-Tron Super Nintendo USB controller, which is what I've been using to capture my emulation footage for my YouTube channel. I dropped it about 3 feet onto my concrete floor here, and it basically just shattered on the inside, which I was really surprised because I thought that was a really high quality controller, but it turns out it's really not as high quality as I thought. So I obviously wasn't going to buy another one of those, and I really didn't want to buy an emulator controller, like a dedicated emulator controller. I just wanted to buy just a dedicated PC controller. So I also wanted to get one with just the D-pad, no joysticks or anything like that. So I kind of had to venture into the vintage PC market, which is a market that I don't know very well. But I wanted to get a vintage PC controller with just the D-pad. And a lot of the controllers I found use GamePort, which the controller plug is like a 15-pin connection or some weird connection. And obviously modern PCs do not support GamePort because the GamePorts were actually on vintage PC sound cards, which obviously I don't have. So I had to find a vintage PC controller which was USB and had one D-pad, which was kind of difficult to find, but I did find one, and it was by a pretty reliable brand, so I was pretty confident about it, so I picked it up. And overall, I'm pretty satisfied with it. There's a couple things about it I don't quite like as much, but I'll talk about that. So I apologize if I'm a bit rusty. I haven't done reviews in a while, so just stay with me here. Today's review is going to be on the Logitech Wingman Precision USB controller. Now, there are two different lineups of Wingman products. One of them is game pads like this here, and the other one is a lineup of joysticks, just dedicated regular joysticks for like flight simulators and things like that. This is the most basic of the gamepad lineup from the Wingman lineup. So yeah, just has the one D-pad here, and it has the 4 face buttons, and it's also got the bumpers on the top. And that's it. It doesn't have any rumble function. It doesn't have any 6-axis motion controls or anything like that. It doesn't have any joysticks, obviously. It's just a basic Logitech controller. And now I was surprised that the quality of this controller didn't quite match up to Logitech's usual quality. I don't know why. It just feels a little bit brittle. It feels like it's not as well put together as other Logitech products. I've been buying Logitech products as long as I've had a PC, and I've never had a Logitech product fail. But this controller feels a little bit flimsy, although it does work perfectly fine, even though it's probably over 10 years old. So I really can't complain a whole lot. So you have your basic 4-button layout over here, which I've talked about a million times. A, B, X, and Y, just like the Xbox controller. The letters aren't directly on the buttons, but they're painted next to them. The buttons feel alright. They're a little bit smaller than I like, and they also have this kind of funky square shape, but they feel fine and work just fine. I'll give you guys a good look at those. Okay, then you have a translucent blue D-pad over here, which looks a lot like the D-pad from the Sega Nomad. And if you don't know what the Sega Nomad is, it's a portable Sega Genesis that was released in the mid-90s. And it's been said to have the best D-pad of any portable game console. So I was kind of thinking the D-pad on this would feel like that. But it really doesn't. It feels good, though. It just feels a bit flimsy. Like it's really loose in there. Like you can shake it around. It feels like it could just fall out of there at any time, which is what I don't like. When you shake the controller, you can hear the D-pad rattling in there. So the D-pad is probably the weakest part of the controller, even though the actual tactile feel of the D-pad is pretty good. It just feels a bit cheap, so that's one thing to keep in mind. The bumpers, surprisingly, I thought they were going to be like buttons, kind of like the PlayStation 2 controller, but it actually turns out that they're actual mechanical switches like the Xbox 360, so they have a really nice click to them. So go ahead and listen to that real quick. And both of them do it. So the wire, they give you about 5 feet of USB wire. This is USB 1.0, so it's an older type of USB, but it does work with modern computers. Works with my modern Windows 7 machine just fine. There's no software needed. It installs all the drivers automatically. Um, and for a basic controller, it's pretty big. Like it's huge. Matter of fact, for what it is, just for having one D-pad and one set of buttons, it's actually pretty big. So I'll show you a comparison between it and the Xbox 360 controller, which the Xbox 360 controller is commonly referred to as a big controller. So you can see the Wingman's actually a little bit longer than the Xbox 360 controller. So the Wingman is pretty lightweight. Like I said, there's no rumble motors or anything inside of it, so there's really nothing to it. So it feels pretty light, although it does feel sturdy if you try to twist it around. It doesn't creak or crack or anything like that. It's got 9 freaking screws holding it together. 9 screws. So this thing is not going to break on you if you drop it. It's pretty solid. And overall, it works with all my emulators just fine. It feels good. The 2 biggest issues I have with it, I'll point out right now. The first one, like I said, is the D-pad. The second is it lacks start and select buttons. There's no start and select on this. So it kind of limits its use, really. It works just fine with PC Engine and NES games because those only need 2 buttons. So I can program these 2 buttons to be A and B, and these 2 to be select and start. But on games like Super Nintendo that use up all the buttons, you won't have any room for select and start. So basically, you have to program select and start on your keyboard, which is what I do, because obviously if you're emulating on PC, you can do that. So it works well for basic games, but if you emulate game consoles like the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, systems like that, you're going to want to get a controller with more buttons. But overall, it's a good controller for basic emulation. It works well. It's by a good company. It's by Logitech, obviously. And overall, I would recommend buying it, especially because of how cheap it is. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.